Hi, I'm Eli Levy, and today we're going to be looking at futures contracts that I'm going to be trading this week. So to start off, I'm going to give you a little bit of a pointer. I usually start off the week with Koifin. It's a great website, and what you could do on Koifin technically, you can pull up all the commodities, the metals, agriculture, and future contracts that you want to look at in order to see what has performed month to date, or for 1 month, or a quarter, and so on, or year to date. So I'll usually go to month to date because I want to be trading things that are moving, contracts that are volatile, and contracts that are up the most. So if we're going to look at the top of the list, the first thing that's up this month right here is the CL contract, which would be crude oil, right? So I'm going to look at crude oil, and then I'm going to be looking at wheat. Wheat was the one that was up month to date, 2.65%. After that, we have live cattle and coal. And then I'm going to be looking at what's down at the most, which was natural gas, soybeans, and corn. So those are the contract, let's say, I would be concentrating on to look for some volatility. So let's take a look at let's start with crude oil and take a look at how we can trade that contract this week and what is happening exactly in crude oil. So taking a look at crude oil futures, I'll first start off with a daily graph. And what I'll do is I'll look at the bottom that we had. The last bottom was 66.33. And the high was 78.46. So I'll find my support or resistance lines, as you can see: 78.45, 75.60, 73.83, 72.40, 70.96, and I'll trade off those support or resistance lines. So for instance, if we're coming back down, I'll look to see what happens when we hit 75.60 for a trade. And as you can see also, the support and resistance lines that you're building for yourself, you want the numbers to end the day above those numbers if we're going to stay positive or below. And that will give you an indication as to whether the trend is going to continue to go down or up. So for instance, if we take a look, this number at 73.83 right around here is a very significant support line. As you can see, we had a couple of days ending and starting at those days. Even in this day, they fell below, but they closed above. They started the day below, they closed above. The next day, which was on the 24th, sorry, on the 8th, they also went below, but they closed exactly at that number, somewhere around 78. I think the close was 73.90. Following day, same thing. They even went below to the next day, but they creep back up and close fairly close to 73.90, and so on. And you can see that it continues to trade within that range itself. So I'll go to a intraday chart, and within that intraday chart, we were talking about 73.83, right? Every single time we would hit that number, I know that I got to make a decision as to what I want to do around that number, whether I want to go long or I want to go short, depending if they're breaking it down to the downside or to the upside. So for instance, on this particular day, it was just a day that was trading around that number, up and down, right around the number, and they ended up higher. But then when they're going below that number, 73.83, I'll just jump on their bandwagon all the way till the next trading range. And if that breaks, I'll continue. But if it's coming back up and I see that it's going above the 72.40, I will try to usually jump into the long side with them and carry myself with the trade as far as I could. And it continues, and they break above the trend lines because that's what they try to do. They try to get you to continue going long, and then they come back to the support level. If that support holds, great. I want to see further upside. If it doesn't hold, then I know that there are sellers in this number. So right now, the magical number is 75 60 and then 73.83. Those are the numbers I'm looking at. Obviously, to the top side, if this is going to continue, the price of energy has been going up ever since what's going on in the Middle East, since Iran sent some ballistic missiles over to Israel. This trade has been trading upwards. So I will try to find supports as opposed to finding resistance areas for shorts to try to continue going with the trend. Taking a look at the E-minis S&P. So the last low was on the August 5th on the yen carry trade. So I'm pulling my supports and resistance since 51.20, which was the low on that day on August 5th. And the last high we had was somewhere around right around here at around 56.69. So as we can see, we broke above that and we are holding above our moving averages. The 20-day is the 20-day is obviously the first major support, and you could see it held the last time around. So let me take you over to just so you know, these are my support areas. If these break, then I believe that the market starts to turn in the other direction until they break back above these support levels. So I want to see these support levels hold. All these purple numbers, I want to see them hold. And obviously, I'm looking at the 50-day moving average and the 100-day moving average and so far. So the market is really, really strong. We're getting good news. If you read my report for this week, I expect that the earnings, which are priced in to just be perfect, if earnings are not going to deliver, then the market will probably have some sort of a pullback. Also, retail sales this week is going to play a big, significant number as to whether the consumer is still spending, because that's really what's holding up the economy. So let's look at the ES on a shorter time frame. So on a shorter time frame, these are the numbers I'm looking at for support. Obviously, you have your pivot points, which people always trade off the pivot points. My first support level comes in at 58.39 pretty much. As you could see, that was also an area of resistance as of last. So I want to see that hold. If that breaks, the next level is the next pivot point, and 58.16, 58.17 more or less as an area of support for the ES. Taking a look at wheat. So on the wheat, on a weekly graph, I see a shoulder on the left side here, a head over here. I see a head and shoulders, we have the head right here, a shoulder on the left side, shoulder on the right side. So I'd be cautious with wheat. Head and shoulders, usually this is a formation for a continued downside. So let's take a look at it more on a shorter time frame. So if I'm looking at a 4-hour time frame, we could see the support areas that I was able to pull up. I pulled them up on Fibonacci numbers as 587.70 and then 569.60 and 555, you could say, more or less. So these are, again, the support zones that I will be trying to play until this trend line that you see right here is going to be broken to the downside. So 587.70 is going to be broken to the downside. I'm probably going to go with the trend until it breaks that resistance again, because that's going to turn into a resistance. As you could see, I got this moving average right here, which is holding. Technically, it's a 100-day moving average on a 4-hour time frame, and that's been holding in this level. So that's what I'm looking at in wheat. Next up, we said volatility to the downside was natural gas, which month to date is down about 10% more or less. So let's take a look at that one. The symbol for natural gas is QG. So as we can see on a much longer time frame, natural gas hit its lowest point, right, at $1.51. And then as you could see, I got a triangle formation. A triangle formation could break out in either direction. It could break out on the upward side or on the downward side direction. and then we could have a breakout to that direction. As being it, because 151 could have been a low for natural gas for now, I would like to see an upward momentum continuing and break out of the triangle towards the upside. That being said, you got to look at your support and resistance lines again on a daily graph. Let's take a look at that. So after we broke out over here from the 151, we continued going up and coming back in. We've actually started breaking to the upside on the 20-day moving average. And for the first time last week, we started breaking it down towards the downside. Our next support resistance would be the 100-day moving average of 240, 2.436. Okay, that should be the next support on this contract. So on a daily graph, before we go to a shorter time frame, if I'll pull up some Fibonacci numbers, according to Fibonacci, the best retracement would be a 38.2 retracement, which would be a 2.529. So that should hold in order for us to be able to see further upward momentum in terms of a support area. If it doesn't hold, we can continue going back down. As you could see, when they retrace, the best number for Fibonacci trade would be a 61.8, which they corrected to then, and then a 78.6. We usually want to see the 61.8 hold. It didn't, and that means that the trading comes to an extreme level, and then most of the time, sometimes we will hold the 78.6, which is what they did right here, which was around the 1.8163. So all these areas came into play, and as you could see also, whenever they traded, they supported, they came back up all the way till around the 50% area. They're trading again, and again, they kind of stalled in order to be able to see what they're doing in that area. So these areas do come into play. I always look to play these numbers in the direction, whether it's going downwards or upwards. So if I'm, let's say, looking for a support area, the next buy for me would be 2.529. I really, sometimes I just take the trade depending on what's going on, unless there is some kind of fundamental news which could sway my mind in thinking, okay, this is not going to be a support area. All right, I hope you enjoyed the video for today. That's all the time we have. Don't forget to give us a like and to subscribe to the channel. Also, I'm not an advisor, so anything you see here is for teaching purposes only. And obviously, trading futures, future contracts is risky, and you could lose probably all your money. That sounds a little much, but that's just the way things roll. Have an amazing day. Thank you very much for watching.